then that is it. That is it. So I want to get those questions. And people were so impressed with that meeting that we had. Were so happy. That's why we did again. And it's just I can say privilege to have you, because having you is not easy. Getting you is not easy. So let me just get those questions and reactions, and then maybe you can answer the questions for these people.
Hello?
It's a minute. So here we are. Question one, or the reaction that came.
Yeah.
This is what I said. What an incredible interview, packed with great information. Thank you, Anne, for being so inspiring. To do the research and carry this tradition with solidity and confidence to help shine the way for the generations who come. Much love. That wasn't a question. That was a person giving thanks. And I think, yeah, you found it somewhere there, and they replied, I'm on my journey and doing fantastic after a few bumps in the road. Charlie Frick was my inspiration. This is another one. What a marvelous human being, and so inspiring. Thank you, Anne, for being beautiful, loving. Another one who said, thank you. Another one also said, hi, Anne, I enjoy your YouTube. I'm trying to be fruitarian, but I'm always falling off the wagon. I think we can start with that one. Yeah. So this is a person who is like trying, and is on and on. Yeah.
Change my camera because focus one, the other one, and it just keeps focusing in and out. So I think this one will be better, which is actually on my computer. It shouldn't keep coming in and out. So yeah, it can be very difficult transitioning from a standard diet to a fruitarian diet, because the whole world around us is kind of geared to promoting certain types of processed food. And as well, when we eat a certain type of food, we have a certain type of gut bacteria in our intestines, and those bacteria feed off certain foods, and they actually cause cravings. So if you've been eating certain foods and you keep eating those certain foods, you'll actually get a physical craving, which is nothing to do with your own willpower or how much you want to be on the diet, but it's actually to do with the bacteria in your gut trying to get you to eat certain types of food. I think what is really important when we're transitioning to this diet is to have faith in the diet. And that isn't blind faith, but that's faith that's built up through research, through knowledge, and we can do that ourselves. We can take control of that faith, and we can read, we can research, we can listen to interviews, we can connect with other people that are following a similar diet and lifestyle. And I'm still researching now. I'm still finding out more and more, and this is 30 years on, and I really enjoy researching, finding out more information. It's a real passion of mine, and it builds my faith, because over these 30 years, everything that I've looked at has led me to believe that we are frugivores by design, that the fruitarian diet is a perfect diet if we're getting good quality fruit. And it's a diet that can give us all our nutritional needs, again, if we're getting good quality fruit and if we're in a place where we're ready to transition into the diet. And I think it's helpful to not be hard on yourself. So one thing, if people eat a food they'd rather not be eating, they say, oh, I failed, or they're hard on themselves, or they're critical of themselves for eating the food that they'd rather not be eating, and use words such as failure or bad. And I think that can cause us to sort of like be hard on ourselves, and to kind of fail even more because we don't think we're worthy. So I think it's very helpful if we look at consequences rather than judging ourselves. So if we eat some potato chips that have got salt on and flavorings, rather than say, oh, I'm really bad, I failed, I've eaten those potato chips. If we rather say, well, I'll look at the consequences. If I eat potato chips, the next day I have some bloating, water retention from the salt. I don't feel so energetic. I don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning and exercising. And we can make a note of consequences, because each action has consequences. Each choice has consequences. But when we start judging what we've done and giving ourselves a hard time, then I feel that can set us back rather than empower us. And in the same way, if we have a supper of mangoes, we can, the next morning, we can have a lot of energy. We can feel like we want to exercise. We don't have water retention. And again, we can note those consequences. So I think when we're having issues with transitioning, don't be hard on yourself. Look at consequences of what you eat rather than making judgments. And another important thing is to have plenty of good quality fruit. People are much more likely to fail if they've not got the supplies in. If you've got a lot of really good quality fruit and you're craving something else, you can say, well, look, I've got these beautiful mangoes or beautiful papaya or deliciously creamy avocados. I'll go and have that. But if we haven't got so much in and we've only got fruits that we don't really like so much, then it's a lot harder, because when we get those cravings, we're going to think, oh, there isn't really much any fruit I really like. I'll have this or I'll have that I'd rather not be eating. So I think it's important as well to make sure we have access to lots of good quality fruits that we enjoy, and fruits that will satisfy us. It's no good getting loads of grapes and if you don't really like grapes, or loads of cherimoya if you don't like cherimoya. It's important to stock up on the fruits that you find delicious, and everybody's slightly different. So I think they're important points: to have faith in the diet and look at research. There's a lot of stuff now online. Years and years ago, when I first started, it was very hard to get a lot of old books. It was scouring old bookshops, and sometimes you were lucky and you got some really interesting information. Now, so much research is up online that you can access. So many books are online. We can order books online. There's groups, there's forums. So there's a lot of information out there if we have computer access that wasn't available 20 or 30 years ago. So that's useful. So have faith, but not blind faith. Faith that's built on research. Realize that sometimes cravings come about because of our gut biome and not because of us having any weaknesses. And the more that we change to a fruit-based diet, the less cravings will be, because we'll change our gut biome. Also, not to be hard on ourselves. So if we eat foods we'd rather not be eating, then to just look at the consequences rather than have judgment of ourselves, and get good quality fruit in, and realize that this is a journey. And the fastest way is not always the best. Sometimes we need a few detours on the way, and we learn things. And every time that you make a decision you'd rather not make, and you are aware of consequences, you can see it as a learning experience and in a positive way, rather than being negative and saying, I failed, or I'm rubbish, I'm taking so long to do this. Think, well, it's part of my journey, and getting there quickly sometimes isn't always the best route. And look at lessons that you can learn along the way. And have faith, but not blind faith. Have faith in yourself, but build that faith on knowledge, networking, study anatomy, study physiology, study biology, study dietetics, so that you really feel, you really believe that this diet is an appropriate diet for humans and a diet that you want to be on. And yeah, don't give yourself a hard time. There'd be tips I would say if you're having a difficult time, and have faith in yourself, and be kind to yourself. Yeah.
Well, thank you. One person also asking here, I wonder if she drinks vegetable juices or any mineral supplements. See vegetables like dals and dals.
I don't really drink many juices. The only juice that I really have regularly is orange juice or tangerine juice, which I use doing a hand juicer. I leave the fiber in because in general, I think it's better to eat the whole fruits. Although I do appreciate that in some circumstances, people prefer to have juices, either because they're having difficulty getting enough micronutrients. So juicing, they can have a lot more, or they've got dental problems and juicing is a lot easier on the teeth. They maybe couldn't eat a carrot, but they could juice a carrot, or they couldn't eat an orange, but they could juice an orange. So I think juicing definitely has its place, but in general, I don't juice, and very occasionally I will have carrot juice, raw carrot juice, and I think that is quite a nice vegetable juice. So occasionally I'll have that, but in general I have whole foods, whole fruits, and I don't tend to have so many vegetables, but I will juice oranges and tangerines. I do really like their juice. I don't supplement. The only supplements I've really taken over the past 30 years have been B12, and that's when I was pregnant and breastfeeding. I don't currently take B12. I've never had any B12 deficiency symptoms. If I did, I would supplement B12 regularly. Also, when I've had blood checks, my B12 shows as in the normal range, but on the low side of normal. But again, I've not had any deficiency symptoms. If I did, I would supplement. And I think if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, it's a good idea to supplement because if babies get low in B12, they can have serious neurological issues. But in general, I don't supplement. I think it's preferable to get all the nutrients, so the micronutrients, the vitamins and minerals and antioxidants from the foods we're eating. And again, it comes down to getting really good quality produce. If we're getting really good quality produce, then I think we can get all the micronutrients we need, but we need to ensure that we're getting organic or biodynamic or local or wild foods that are grown in good soil and picked ripe. Because when fruits are picked ripe, they have maximum levels of micronutrients, and micronutrients are your vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. So, I think supplementation might be necessary for some people. I think vitamin D is something else that you have to be aware of. I live somewhere warm and sunny all the year round, so I should be able to produce enough vitamin D, for probably 10 months out of 12, and then you can store it. But if I lived in a less sunny climate, I would preferably get a vitamin D lamp. But if I didn't have that, I would supplement if my levels were low. I think vitamin D is very, very important nutrient. It's more like a hormone. It's more like a steroid in its formula. It's very similar to cholesterol in its chemical formula. And it's something that we need for many, many processes in the body. And many people are low in vitamin D because they work indoors or they've got a darker skin. The darker your skin, the longer you need to be in the sun to produce enough vitamin D. And when people have indoor jobs, they don't always get an opportunity to be out in the sun in the hours of the day when you can absorb vitamin D. So I think things to look at in terms of supplements are B12 and vitamin D. Hopefully you should be able to get everything else you need from your diet, but because these days soils are being degraded, it might be that you need to supplement something, but I always endeavor to get good quality fruits so that I don't supplement.
Oh, and I'm just realizing this now. There are lamps for vitamin D. Vitamin D.
Mm. Yes.
Lamp.
Yes, there's a company called Spurty, which are based, I think, in the United States, but they ship worldwide, and they produce a lamp which doesn't tan you because it produces just the rays that cause vitamin D to be produced in the body, which are the different rays from which you get a suntan. So you won't get a suntan using it. They do suntanning lamps as well, but you will produce vitamin D. And the company is called Spurty, which is Sperti. And there's other companies that do them as well, but they're probably the most well-known one. spurty. And that's what I would, if I was living somewhere like the UK or North America, I would buy one of those lamps and I would use it every day or every other day. I think they recommend them to be used to ensure I got sufficient vitamin D, because there's certain other things that the rays can give us that supplementation can't. I think the sun is the ideal source of vitamin D, and we can store it. It's a fat soluble vitamin. So if we get a good summer, we can store vitamin D for several months. But if we live in a climate where there are short summers and longer winters, it may be that towards the end of the winter period, we're getting deficient in vitamin D, and we either need to go for a holiday somewhere sunny, or we need to supplement, or we need to go under a vitamin D lamp. And you can get tests. You can go to your local doctor and you can request for a vitamin D test. Say that you're vegan and you don't have any food sources of vitamin D, and they should give you a test to ascertain your levels. And if they're low, I would definitely recommend doing something about it, because all sorts of health conditions can be caused. It's not just the sort of like the scurvy that was around in the 1920s and 30s when there was a lot of smog. And a lot of people got rickets from low vitamin D because the sunlight wasn't getting through all the pollution in the air. But there are many other things as well that we need vitamin D for in the body. It's very important for our endocrine system and for our immune system. And even recently, we've seen that it's being recommended as a prevention against certain viruses. So that's one to watch for sure.
Good. This question was going on. Does she drink coffee, tea, or any alcoholic any time during her fruit diet?
No, I don't drink tea or coffee. I never liked tea. I used to drink coffee for a couple of years, from probably the ages of 14 to 18 maybe. And then when I started to get interested more in health and diet, I was aware that there were some negative effects to coffee, and I stopped drinking it probably when I was about 18 or 19. And I think I had one cup several years after I stopped drinking it. I was doing an interview at a newspaper office, and they offered me a drink, and to be sociable I said, I'll have a black coffee, and it really affected me for a long time afterwards. And then in recent years, somebody offered me a cup of tea, and I said, does it have caffeine in, or is it just like a herbal tea? And they said, no, it doesn't have caffeine in, but it did, because I was awake that night. I couldn't sleep for hours and hours at night, because I don't generally have tea or coffee. So I've had one cup of coffee, one cup of tea with caffeine in the past 30 years. I don't drink alcohol. I gave that up when I was in my early 20s. So like 34 years ago now that I don't drink. I just never consciously gave it up. I just didn't feel a need for it anymore. I felt that I could go out with my friends. I could have a really good time, and I didn't need to drink. It was something that the last time I had an alcoholic drink, I remember I was at a microbrewery, and I'd had a beer, and I was in the ladies' toilets, and I could feel that my consciousness was being changed by having the alcohol, because I drank very rarely then anyway. And I thought, I don't like this. I prefer to be more aware, and alcohol takes that away. It changes my consciousness. So that was the last time I drank alcohol, and I've never missed it. I can go out and I can have a great time and go out dancing. You can be sociable without having alcohol. And I choose not to have tea or coffee because of the caffeine, though occasionally I might have a herbal tea. If somebody says, yes, this is just herbs and it's not got any caffeine or anything in, I will sometimes have a herbal tea, but it's not something I regularly do at all.
How about nuts? Isn't that something for, yeah?
Nuts, I rarely have nuts because I feel better if I want, and sometimes I feel like something fattier. I find personally that I digest avocados or young coconut flesh or durian, which has, or raw olives that are unsalted. I do much better with them than with nuts. I feel nuts are difficult to digest. Even if they're soaked, I feel they're quite heavy. I think they can be a useful food for people transitioning. I had them when I was transitioning. Occasionally, if I'm making a cake, I will use soaked macadamia nuts in the cake. But in general, I don't have nuts. I think there's a place for nuts for some people. I think if they agree with you, if you find them delicious, you don't have digestive issues, they can be a useful source of protein, of healthy fats, as long as they're raw. And they can also help to satiate people if they're used to eating heavier foods. And I have eaten nuts. I occasionally eat nuts now when I make a celebration cake and I put nuts in it, but I don't have them as a regular food, or I don't have them as a staple. And if I want something fattier, which I often do, I feel like something more fatty, I will have avocado usually, because they grow locally and they're good quality here. Or I will have young coconut, or I will have a durian when durians are in season. But I rarely have nuts. But I don't think they're a bad food as such. I think they have their place. I think some people get on well with them, and they can add valuable micro and macronutrients into the diet. But it just depends how you digest them. And for some people, they might find alternative sources of plant fat digest better than nuts.
Yeah, and someone had said when I first posted this, someone gave a very harsh comment. He said, "This thing is not possible for long term. It is only good for short term, and then a long time it has very bad results."
Well, I think the bottom line is the quality of the fruit you're eating. Any diet, you need to meet your macronutrient level and you need to meet your micronutrient level. So your macros, your proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. Your micronutrients are vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, which you need in a much smaller amount than the macros, which is why they're called micronutrients. And on any diet, whether it's a carnivore diet, whether it's a vegetarian diet, whether it's a cooked vegan diet, macrobiotic diet, whatever, if you're not meeting your macro and micronutrient needs, you're not going to be healthy long term. If you do, you are. And it's interesting that when my older child, when he was 6 or 7, he had his diet and he was on a fruit diet and he had some nuts, some raw nuts. He had his diet analysed by a government nutritionist in the UK, and he had that done twice, and both times they said that he was meeting his RDAs in everything apart from calcium. And he's like, he never had a filling as a child. He grew big and strong. I don't think he had an issue with not having enough calcium. But this was government, and they actually said, well, he's meeting his RDAs, which surprised me because I thought they would come back and say, no, he's deficient in this, in that, and in everything, really. But I think you've got to be aware day to day of how you're feeling, and not just say, right, I'm going to go on a fruitarian diet now for 30 years and everything's going to be fine. There might be times when you need to eat a small amount of greens, or you need to eat more fats, or you need to eat more of one type of food. And it's very important that you listen to your body and you don't get complacent and you see how you're doing. And I've had 2 pregnancies, successful pregnancies, also long-term breastfeeding for 3.5 years with my older boy and 4 years with my younger boy. Now, if I wasn't getting the nutrients that I needed, I wouldn't have been able to successfully have those pregnancies and also breastfeed for extended periods. I'm also pretty active. I run 10 kilometers every other day. I do a lot of gardening. I sort of like walk a lot, and I walk into town many times, and that's like a 14-kilometer walk. So if I wasn't getting the nutrients I need, I don't believe after 30 years that I'd be able to go running regularly, that I'd feel well, that I would have a good immune system. And that's the thing to look at. If you're not getting what you need in terms of micro and macronutrients, your immune system is not going to work well. So you're going to be susceptible to getting infections. If you get a wound, it's going to take a long time to heal. The last time that I was supposed to speak with you, and I was sick, and that was the first time I'd been sick in ages, and it was COVID. My husband had COVID, and I didn't separate from him. I thought, if I'm going to get it, I'll get it. And it was a couple of days when it was really bad. And then after a week, I was totally back to normal. So obviously my immune system, I haven't been immunized, dealt with COVID in a week. And that was all it took. After 2 days, I was out of bed. I was in bed for a couple of days. After 2 days, I was out of bed, had a few aches, but after a week, it was, all good. Now, if I wasn't getting the nutrition that I needed, my immune system wasn't working well, if I'd got COVID, I'd be probably a lot worse and have had it for, more than a week and be totally back to normal. Also, I'd be susceptible to getting more infections. And I also feel that if I get wounds, they heal very, very quickly. And that's another thing. If you're getting enough micronutrients in your diet and enough protein, what you'll find, if you hurt yourself, it heals very quickly. Like I fell the other day. I was like tripped and fell quite heavy onto a hard surface. And I thought I was going to do some damage. I had a bit of a sore place on my hip, and that was it. There was no bruising. There was nothing. And again, if your immune system's working well, if your blood capillaries are working well, your venous system, then you won't bruise very easily, which I don't now. I used to bruise very easily as a child, so it's not genetic. When I was a kid, I just tapped myself and I would bruise. And that was on a standard diet, bog standard diet. But when I went onto a raw fruit diet, that was something I noticed, that I hardly ever bruise. And especially if I'm having a lot of citrus, because citrus is very good for the capillary system. It protects your capillaries. So you've got stronger capillaries, they're less likely to get damaged if you knock yourself. Now it's rare. If I have a bruise on myself, it's unusual. I think, oh, I've got a bruise. So that's something I've noticed a big change. So it works for me. I can't say that it'll work for everyone. And one of the things why I think it works for me long term is because I can access good quality fruit. If I couldn't, and I was getting fruit that's grown in poor soils and didn't have the nutrition in it, then yes, I don't think this would be sustainable. But I believe that it's sustainable for some people, and we're all slightly different, if we can access good quality fruit consistently, not just certain times of the year.
Oh, thank you. I think questions. And actually wanted to ask you about this COVID, if you had been vaccinated or something, but you already answered it. So at the end of it all, you didn't take the vaccine, or because of the laws of the land, because some nations are very strict. Did you bow and take the vaccine later, or what?
No, I've not taken the vaccine. I don't have any fear of COVID. I'm happy to socialize with people that have got COVID. My husband had it. He was working, and someone at his work came to work with COVID, knowing they had COVID, which was a bit of a silly thing to do. My husband got COVID, and I thought, I'm not going to isolate it. I'm not scared of it. If I get it, and it was really less serious than many sort of like flus I've had, or it was just not, it was like a couple of days, it was achy, and it was like a bit grim, but that was it. And I have no fear of COVID. I don't fear viruses. I think what will determine how I react to a virus and whether I even get a virus is my immune system. And my husband's got viruses before, and I've not got them. And I've been in close proximity to him. I think if I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it. My body, if it's healthy, it will deal with this. So yeah, I thought, well, I'll probably get COVID, and I felt it coming on. I think we were supposed to have this interview on Saturday evening, and I felt it come on Saturday morning, and I thought, I've got it. And I suddenly felt like quite weak and achy, and so it was bad on that Saturday, on that Sunday, and then it just was like, oh, I just get up and do what I need to do, and I still got a few aches, and after a week I was totally back to how I was before. So I think it's like anything, how strong your immune system is determines how you will react to something. If your immune system's good, whatever you get, whether it's you get an injury, or whether you get a virus, or whether you get a bacterial infection, you will deal with it. Your body will deal with it, and usually it can take a long time, but it will heal eventually. And even if somebody gets COVID and it's long COVID, they'll still eventually heal from it, I believe, because the body's amazing. It's just wonderful in its healing capacities. But the more we give our body what it needs to heal, and when I had COVID, I water fasted for 2 days, and then I did 5 days on orange juice, and that, I think that really helped. And it just helped my body deal with it quickly. And I'm not, if I know somebody had COVID, I'm not going to avoid them. I think if I get it, I get it. My body will deal with it. There's been many times when my husband has had viruses and I've not got them at all. With the COVID, I did get it, but it was no biggie at all. I've had far worse viruses in the past. And I believe that your immune system will determine how you react to anything that happens to you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. Now, I think done, because we didn't want to have too much of your time. Just wanted you to react to this question. And one, I realized that you had already answered them. You had responded to some of those questions. Yeah, the YouTube channel, that weekly fasting YouTube channel. So I don't see the need of you repeating yourself here and there, because sometimes it's just an individual who needs an answer. So if you have anything you want to make as a conclusion, thank you. But you know, even me, you have convinced me. Today you have convinced just a short time you do, I'm convinced this thing is the right diet. It's the right way to eat. Because now you are with understanding. The difference is that you are not forcing it. You do your research, you know what your body needs, then you go for it. You go for it where it is. Exactly. That's why. Yeah, that's why I'm convinced. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
And you're most welcome. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.